Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of r/ProRevenge. In today's episode, extra cheese on your fries, you say? Here you are, madam, and may you eat in good health. You want to cancel your reservation? Okay. We do not run without a work order. Before we get started, make sure to subscribe so you will never miss a video. So let's get started. Extra cheese on your fries, you say? Here you are, madam, and may you eat in good health. Also, trigger warning for anyone offended by crimes against potatoes, cheese, and cuisine in general. I have since attempted to atone for my sins by never treating food this poorly again. With that out of the way. Over a decade ago, I worked in a small, independent pizzeria in the rural Midwest, USA, as both a cook and, nominally, an assistant manager, which seemed to imply that I had authority to bear the brunt of customer complaints while also lacking the authority to do much about them other than call for an actual manager. Even so, it was a pretty nice job, in no small part due to the fact that, being a non-chain restaurant in a small town in the Corn Belt, most of our clientele was fairly nice and civil or near insensate from being high on moonshine or some other recreational pharmaceutical after some local hoedown or shindig. Or both, since I've found the Venn diagram of chill folks and folks who are likely intoxicated by cannabis to contain a not insignificant overlap. Now, for a little background, this episode 1M to relate took place during those halcyon days when the Atkins diet was at its zenith. For those sane people outside the US or otherwise sheltered from it in a different manner, the Atkins diet was ostensibly a health plan to assist with weight loss by cutting out carbohydrates from one's diet. In reality, many, perhaps most of its practitioners labored under the pretense that, despite incredible intakes of high-fat and high-calorie foods, the avoidance of bread would somehow cause Mother Nature and her sons, heart disease and malnutrition, to go blind and forget about them for a while. Another point to note is that, unlike some pizzerias, our pizza place served much more than just pizzas. Though pizza was the primary product on offer, we had a bunch of different sandwiches, steak, chicken, fish, etc., calzones, wings, various homemade breads, and French fries and other fried foods. With the onset of Atkins, our menu morphed to include such idiocies as breadless sandwiches, breadless pizzas, etc., which are too depressing to describe in detail. At the time of this incident, I had been working there for about a year and a half. It was a Friday, specifically the Friday after Thanksgiving, for non-USERS, or those not in the know. Thanksgiving is our pagan ritual where we offer sacrifices of food to the gods' gluttony and annoying relatives. Normally Fridays were rather busy, but because of the fact that every family had somewhere between a lot and infinite leftovers in their fridge from the day before, the restaurant was as dead as my sense of happiness after hearing Paul Reiser do stand-up one time. As such, I was the only one scheduled to work for the last 2 hours of the shift, until closing. Much cleaning was done to fill the hours until midnight, when I could go home and play video games until sunrise like any self-respecting young person. Grease and dirt still sing mournful ballads of the terrible reckoning of that night. Anyway, having scrubbed the place to a shine, counted the till and beat back the throng of customer, I found myself staring daggers at a seemingly time-locked punch clock with 15 minutes to go until midnight. I hate the jingle of bells on entrance doors to this day. In walked the couple, who I will call Mrs. and Mr. H for this story. Their actual last name began with H. They shared their surname with that of a portion of the name of a well-known brand of motorcycle, but I also had, and have some other less than flattering nicknames utilizing the letter for them. Or at least for one of them. Mr. H was cool. He was this chill little scrawny guy who wore glasses roughly the thickness of a phone book folded twice, and was incredibly soft-spoken and polite. His one damning quality was a peculiar reluctance to wear anything but a thin and very nipple-revealing sleep shirt and boxer combo into the restaurant, despite whatever weather condition may pertain outside. Mrs. H, on the other hand, was a beast of a specimen in many senses of the word. She was quite robust in her stature and physique, towering over me, a not short guy, by at least a foot, 1/3 rd-ish meter, for the fancy metric inclined and easily outstripping me in weight by somewhere around 200 pounds, I'm too lazy to look up the pound to kilo conversion, sorry. Lest this seem like simple body shaming, I should note that her lack of social grace was every bit commensurate to her size. She was rude, brusque, demanding and generally unpleasant in the way of all customers who come into a restaurant with the revealed, epiphanic knowledge that they are right and, by extension, the rest of the world is wrong. 5 cheese fries, she said, spewing the words like a Victorian noble when telling a servant to clean up a dog's mess. Extra cheese. The door had barely had time to close behind her. Yes, ma'am, I said, wincing inwardly but hopeful of keeping the interaction brief so I could usher them on their way. And would you like dash? And make sure it's extra cheese this time. You duty heads never put on enough cheese. I should mention here that she did not say the word duty heads, nor in fact any such mild swear replacement at any time. She had a habit that our manager called swear Tourette's, where her speech would be strangely punctuated by a wealth of rather inventive curse words, peppered throughout at about every third word emerging from her uncouth throat hole. The behavior was tolerated and she wasn't banned from the restaurant because, though uncivil and rude, it did not come across as designedly hostile or attacking, since there was no non-hostile behavior she had to compare it against. It was her rest state, as it were, a background radiation and unpleasant aspect of her existence, the way tornadoes cause property destruction or Paul Reiser causes sadness. Also, everyone felt bad for her husband, who we knew would be deprived of our food as well if we banned her, and as I mentioned he was rather chill and cool, nipple shirt notwithstanding. Yes, ma'am, I said. And knowing the order had been only for her, and anything for you, Mr. H? No thank you, he said. Though I may get a soda before we dash. And make sure not to put any of that toasted breadcrumb shitpaste on it. Note, she actually said shitpaste, and though I loathe repeating too much unwholesome language here, I feel this one is novel enough to warrant it, she interrupted. We're on Atkins. This confused me for several reasons. First, while I was perfectly capable of making up breadcrumbs to put on whatever a customer desired, we didn't have them as a normal part of our cheese fries recipe. Secondly, to the best of my knowledge then and now, French fries are not carb-free, thus casting doubt on the soundness of using them as a weight loss tool. Ma'am, I said, searching my mental vaults for a way to say it in a way that didn't make it sound like she was stupid, you know that potatoes and French fries do contain carbs, right? If you're doing Atkins, we have a lot of other items that dash. Look, creative expletive, just make the damn fries. I think I know more about healthy diet than you do. It is my misfortune to have missed such an obvious truth, I suppose. And, as they say, the customer is always right. I obediently went to turn on the fryer, which I had turned off in my foolish assumption that no one would order 5 cheese fries less than 10 minutes before midnight the day after a major holiday, and put the fries on to cook. A substantial and overtime-inducing amount of time later, I loaded the French fries into a baking dish and proceeded to cover them with roughly double the amount of cheese as was normally served on them, and about 8 times the amount a human person should have in a whole week. When finished, I packaged them up and went to give them to Mrs. H. Let me see him before we go, to make sure you put on enough cheese, she said. I obligingly opened up one of the containers, and then even more obligingly opened the remaining 4 when she didn't trust that they would be equivalent to the already inspected one. Not enough cheese, she said. Go and do 'em again. At this point I had reached that nirvanic state where annoyance crossed the threshold and became an almost beatific equanimity, bolstered by the malicious understanding that my obedience completely undermined her fruitless and stupid diet. I went and did 'em again, this time piling on roughly 3 times the cheese I had used previously, resulting in a soupy mess of liquid cholesterol that would have instantly made every cardiologist in the world die from depression. Another inspection followed, the results were declared satisfactory, and the H's left without further ado, leaving me free to close up shop for good. I didn't know it then, but over the next few weeks, the cheese fries order was to be placed several times per week by her in the invincible ignorance of belief that it was Atkins approved. Several more weeks after that, after a time which the H's had failed to order anything from us, I was working alone again one night when, to my surprise, in came Mr. H unencumbered by his wife. What's more, he came in to order just a baked fish platter, one of our healthiest menu items, and quite good, for himself. When I asked him where his wife was, he informed me that she was no longer able to eat out for the foreseeable future because, as it turns out, French fries were not carb-friendly. Furthermore, she had actually gained somewhere on the order of 25 pounds during her diet, had had a minor cardiac episode, and was restricted by her doctor from eating anything more unhealthy than raw vegetables and air for a long while. When she finally did come back in, much later and many pounds lighter, I was even astounded to find that she thanked me after listening, fully intently, to my alternative suggestions for healthier menu items. You want to cancel your reservation? Okay. About a decade ago, when I was fresh out of high school, I got a summer job working at a lakeside boat rental/bait and tackle shop. My boss, Joe, not his real name, inherited the shop from his father and took a massive amount of pride in keeping the family business going. Still, he wasn't one to give in to bullshit and clearly took it personally when a customer complained about anything to do with the shop he loved so much. Our lake was a pretty popular trophy fishing destination due to how large the local Mackinaw trout got. Bossman wanted to reward people who planned ahead by never charging summer pricing, approximately $150 more per day on reservations. Naturally, this resulted our boats getting booked out weeks in advance. The catch was we did require a completely refundable, $100 security deposit, we said in case of damages, but was mostly to guarantee they returned the boat. Of course, every year, many people took issue with this policy. In 3 years I saw this happen dozens of times. Boss had his malicious compliance down to an exact science. When a customer would refuse to pay the security deposit, Joe would state the deposit is non-negotiable. Almost always, the customer would then declare they're canceling their reservation. They'll never do business here again, generally recite the whole Karen manifesto. Joe would cheerfully agree, feed their paperwork into the shredder, and send them off. You see, dear reader, of the 3 marinas on the lake, we were the only ones that rented out boats. The other 2 only rented out space for boats to dock. They'd never ask about our competitors, so Joe never had any reason to inform them. Without fail, within the hour the customer would be back, having realized that they couldn't get a boat elsewhere. Usually at this point business would be picking up, meaning I'd be, loudly, answering questions about boat rentals for other guests, and the customer's fishing buddies or antsy kids would be pushing them to get the boat already. Grudgingly they'd ask for their boat. Joe would fake concern and tell them that unfortunately, all the boats have been reserved for weeks, so we're usually unable to accommodate walk-in rental requests. As luck would have it, we had a cancellation earlier today. Since they don't have a reservation, however, we have to charge the summer holiday pricing. Oh, and, just FYI, we require a completely refundable, $100 security deposit for all rentals. I hope that's alright with you. We do not run without a work order. Backstory. At my job we are given a packet of papers that tell us what to run, how many of it to run, and information we need to run the material. We call these work orders. It is a company policy not to run without a work order. Now the problem is we have one person who writes all the work orders for the plant. It might take a while to get a work order, so usually the boss tell us what to run, and we get started on it. Cast, all the names are fake. Real Walrus, me. John, my boss. Kevin, owns the business. Story. John, come up to me like every morning. Real Walrus, you are going to run material X today. I'll get you a work order as soon as possible. Real Walrus, sure thing boss. So I get everything set up and start running like normal, except no order, like normal. Then Kevin walks up. Kevin, hey Real Walrus, I was looking for your work order, where is it? Real Walrus, I don't have it. John said he would bring it later. Kevin, then why are you running? Real Walrus, I know what I'm running, so I started running. Boss told me to run material X. Kevin, are you aware the company policy is not to run without a work order? Real Walrus, I'm aware. Sometimes it takes time to get work orders, so we would be standing around not doing anything while waiting for the work order. Kevin, so you are just ignoring company policy. He then turns and walks away without me answering. A couple days later. John, hey Real Walrus, you are running material Y today. Real Walrus, cool, get me a work order. John, I'll get it later, go ahead and set up and start. Real Walrus, are you aware company policy is to run only when you have a work order? John, I'm aware. The lady who writes the orders is behind those, so it's going to take time. Real Walrus, Kevin said we are not to run without work order. Sorry John, but if you want me to start without an order, go take it up with him. John turns around and walks away. I should mention that the machine I ran required at least 2 people to run, but it was better with 3. That day we only had 2. A few hours passed and came back with a work order. It was about 10 a.m. We started at 7 a.m. John, hey Race, your work order, are you set up and ready to run? Real walrus, I have the rolls and everything. But it's going to take a while as the machine take a little while to start up. I should be running around 12 o'clock. John, so, the company paid you and your helper for standing around doing nothing. Real walrus, no, you paid me and my helper for waiting on a work order. There is a difference. John walks away. Kevin wants to be a stickler for the rules. Okay, I can play that game too. So they paid me and my helper for 5 hours that day for waiting around. It doesn't sound like a lot, but when you have at least one machine down about 1 hour every day, while the employees wait for a work order, it adds up. Everyone there runs without an order from time to time. Kevin never says anything about it anymore because he would have about 30% to 40% of the operators waiting on orders. He doesn't make money if the machines don't run. If you made it to the end of the video, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe and share, and we will see you in the next video.